On September 7, 2016, Apple stood on a stage in San Francisco and told the world they were removing the headphone jack from the iPhone 7. The executive presenting called it an act of courage. The internet went absolutely feral. Hundreds of millions of people owned wired headphones. Billions of dollars worth of audio equipment used that 3.5mm port, a port that had been standard for nearly a century. And Apple was just getting rid of it. They said it was about space, about innovation, about the future. They were telling the truth. They just weren't telling the whole truth. The 3.5mm audio jack is not a modern invention. Its ancestor, the 6.35mm quarter-inch plug, was designed in 1878 for telephone switchboards. Operators used it to manually connect calls by plugging jumper cables into a board. The smaller 3.5mm version appeared in the 1950s, used in transistor radios to connect earpieces. Sony standardized it for the Walkman in 1979, and from that point forward, it became the universal audio connector for virtually every consumer device on Earth. For 40 years, if something made sound and you wanted to listen privately, you plugged in your 3.5mm headphones. Every phone, every laptop, every MP3 player, every camera. One standard. Universal compatibility. Zero proprietary dependency. It worked. It worked brilliantly. And that, for companies like Apple, was precisely the problem. Apple removed the headphone jack in 2016. That same year, Apple had quietly acquired Beats Electronics for $3 billion in 2014, the largest acquisition in Apple's history at that time. Beats made wireless headphones. Shortly after removing the jack, Apple launched AirPods, wireless earbuds priced at $159 a pair, with proprietary pairing technology that works seamlessly with iPhones but not particularly well with anything else. In the first full year after AirPods launched, they generated approximately $6 billion in revenue for Apple. By 2019, the AirPods business alone was larger than many Fortune 500 companies. By 2020, Apple's wearables category, driven almost entirely by AirPods, crossed $30 billion annually. Think about that timeline. They removed the universal connector. Included a Lightning to 3.5mm adapter, a $2 component they charged for separately shortly afterward, and seeded the market for a product that would generate billions in ongoing accessory revenue. The 3.5mm jack didn't cost Apple much to include, but it gave users a free, competitive, universally compatible option. Removing it didn't just make room in the phone, it removed the user's ability to participate in the audio ecosystem without paying Apple a premium. To be fair, there were genuine technical arguments. Apple and subsequent companies, Samsung, Google, and others who eventually followed, cited real engineering trade-offs. The 3.5mm port requires a physical hole in the chassis. Physical holes are the enemy of waterproofing. The IP67 and IP68 water resistance ratings that became standard on flagships phones require sealed enclosures. Every port is a seal that can fail. Removing the headphone port genuinely did improve waterproofing and simplified the internal sealing architecture. The port also occupies physical space in an increasingly competitive internal layout. Modern flagships pack increasingly large batteries, multi-lens camera systems, more powerful chips, and larger structural components into the same or thinner form factors. The space occupied by the headphone port is real, even if it's small. And the analog audio circuitry connected to a 3.5mm jack, while not large, does introduce ground loop interference with other internal components. Digital audio through Bluetooth or USB-C theoretically delivers a cleaner signal. These technical arguments are real, but they are not sufficient. Because Sony, a company that has been making consumer audio equipment since before Apple existed, continued including 3.5mm jacks in flagship Xperia phones long after every other major manufacturer dropped them, while achieving equivalent waterproofing ratings. The technical barriers were solvable. Apple chose not to solve them. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The headphone jack was removed because it was too useful. Because it gave consumers too much freedom. Freedom to use any headphones, from any manufacturer, bought anywhere in the world, without paying anyone a licensing fee or a premium markup. The 3.5mm jack represented the last major universal standard in personal consumer electronics. And one by one, companies found ways to make every simple interaction proprietary. Every cable, every connector, every pairing protocol, a revenue opportunity. The courage Phil Schiller referenced on that stage in 2016? It was real. It just wasn't the kind of courage that benefits you. It was the courage to remove something that worked, that you owned, and that cost them nothing, and replace it with something you'd have to buy from them again.